course, we've been focusing on the astonishing music of Allan Holdsworth today, but as you mentioned, Dan, you worked with him for the last year of his life. I know you had a long career before that. So why don't we talk a little more generally about some of your experiences in the business? You can go back as far as you want to.
Well, I started with the reissue label Rhino Records, kind of their early days. I think when I started with them as a college rep when I was at San Diego State, I kind of serviced the San Diego retail market for them. And then when I graduated, I took on a full-time job there in 1984. Their biggest release at the time was The Best of the Turtles, so go figure. Our current clients now at Manifesto Records, so things go full circle. But Rhino was kind of at a point where they were doing a combination of reissues. They had done a Best of Richie Valens, Best of the Bobby Fuller Four. We're getting into some other things, some early Everly Brothers catalog and whatnot, but they were also a novelty record label. They put out a lot of Dr. Demento type related stuff. And, we're kind of trying to find their way. But, eventually they became kind of the go-to reissue label. As they weren't really affiliated with a major label, they could kind of cross-license. So you'd get these kind of comprehensive reissues of, somebody's career. Eventually, they were bought by the Warner Music Group and now they're the catalog division of that. But I worked for them in the 80s. I discovered a band called the Beat Farmers when I was down in San Diego, and we ended up doing a record with them. That was kind of the highlight of my career over at Rhino. At a point, I worked for a manager, an artist manager, and then eventually got into distribution for a while, which was an interesting thing just because it kind of, made me, in terms of like what I liked and didn't like, it made me realize that you had a wide array of labels that all different kind of genres of music. So whether, something you liked or didn't like, you recognized the kind of, I guess, saleability, if nothing else. And, it's just kind of a good education in terms of where I'm at now, where I'm selling a kind of a variety of things. Then I went to work for a label called Moonshine Music, which was an early days EDM label, had a kind of meteoric rise and a meteoric fall. And then, they're no longer around, and eventually did some artist management, a variety of other things, and eventually went to work for Evan Cohen on a special project. Evan is a copyright attorney, and we do U.S. copyright terminations for artists. After 35 years, releases that were after 1978, after 35 years, the U.S. copyright can be terminated, where the artists, the band members or the artist, would then own the rights to the U.S. Now, that's ties into what we're talking about because it's coming up very soon, but Allan Holdsworth Estate will own the U.S. copyright to road games.
Nice.
Sound recordings of road games. So Warner will control it for the rest of the world. Not to say that they ever really did, much with it after its initial release. I don't think they ever released it on CD. I think, other labels have reissued it on CD.
I think Gnarly Geezer was the first.
Gnarly Geezer, and I think Eddie Jobson's label, can't remember, Global, was it? I forgot, something Global. But anyway, the Allan Holdsworth Estate would be the owners of road games, the U.S. copyright of road games, which, is by far the biggest market. And that's what we do. We do that for artists. So that relationship with Evan led me to starting on some reissues, first with Lee Michaels, who, kind of similar to Allan, he owns 7 of his original albums that were on A&M Records. He's best known for his hit "Do You Know What I Mean," which was huge and still gets a lot of film and television placements and whatnot. And he was a big FM artist. He didn't have a lot of hit singles, but he had a big career, and that was really great. We did a very similar thing, 7 CD box set, 40-page booklet, great photos. Then we went, and the next thing we did was the same thing with the Turtles. The Turtles did 6 albums in their career. We did 6 albums. The first 3 were mono stereo. The next 3 had tons of bonus material, 40-page booklet, great box. So it's kind of like the business model that led up to working with Allan and doing, The Man Who Changed Guitar Forever, which was, a major success for us.
You have to promise me that somewhere down the line you're going to name a box set Meteoric Rise, Meteoric Fall.
Oh, there you go. That's a
That's
a good
catchy.
title, isn't it? But that's anyway. So that's kind of like where I'm at now. Is we're doing a lot of a variety of things, reissuing a lot of different type of releases, did a lot of different genres. Basically, that was pretty much it for Allan, obviously. And after he passed away, it was kind of like it was a shock for everyone, and. I know I'd met Emily, but Louise I had a relationship with because she was assisting with kind of like the press part of the equation.
Yeah.
Allan was not huge on doing interviews and whatnot. Wasn't his favorite thing to do in the world, but I recruited Louise to kind of reel him in and help me, make sure that he did the vast majority of the interviews he was supposed to do for The Man Who Changed Guitar Forever. But there were still a couple pending. That he got out of. But so, I kept in touch and, basically the idea was, what do we do to keep the legacy going? One thing I gathered from this, like I said, I've worked on with the people that I've mentioned, and they have various Facebook pages and things like that. And, people kind of chime in here and there, talk about this and that. And I'm like, but the page that Manning Bartlett runs, the Unreal Allan Holdsworth, is just like nothing I've ever seen, just very interactive and just people that are like extreme hardcore fans and, want more. And, it was evident to me out there that there were people that had these amazing recordings, like an archive of recordings, to Allan, which are, essentially, bootlegs, you could trade them amongst yourself, but like in terms of something that we could put out that would be, a commercial piece that would be something that's great quality, has some notes, has, just a great package, for the fans just to kind of keep the legacy going. And so that was a conversation I had, and eventually we agreed on it. And this is what we came up with for the first one, the Live in Japan 1984, because like you said, it's from his first 3 solo records. And, we went big on the first one. We had the video content. We had great sounding recording. Then this is something that we're going to continue. Right now, I'm kind of talking amongst people like, what is out there? What's next? What do you think? And I obviously that's it for now for this configuration.
Yeah.
We want a different ensemble. I mean, that's one thing I learned about Allan is that, he would change, make wholesale changes in his ensemble, his sound from record to record. So each tour, I'm sure was, dramatically different as well. And, so I trust the people that I'm dealing with. Ed Chang, who provided the tape on this, the audio, beautiful sounding, audio on that. Chris Horde, who wrote the notes, and, Manning, just a variety of people that are kind of like chiming in with opinions that I will definitely listen to because I don't really know. I surrounded myself with really good people that know about Allan, and really know what would be great.
I think it should be comforting to his fans to know that his legacy is in the hands of people who are respectful of Allan, who truly care about his body of work and aren't just out to exploit his name and his phenomenal talent. There's a danger of that with someone like him, and it's nice to see that that's not going to happen. And you mentioned the Unreal Allan Holdsworth group. Not only is it very interactive, but the musical knowledge of the average member of that group is much different than any other. I mean, to appreciate Allan, you don't have to be a guitar player, but it helps to play guitar or, let's say, keyboards. But I just can tell from the comments that people make that people in there are pretty well educated in music. I think a lot of the people who read some of those posts probably don't get it, but a lot of people who hear Allan play don't get it. So
count me in as one of the people that reads those posts and don't get it, because I don't. A lot of times they're talking technical, things that of technique and various whatever it was, notes, chords, et cetera, et cetera. They're talking about things that I really have no idea what they're talking about. But like I said, it makes me realize that there's this kind of group out there that speaks each other's language, and it's a pretty good sized group. And the excitement around this release, just essentially from kind of word of mouth from the group itself. Sure, we sent out, copies for review and, whatnot. But I mean, the people that kind of proactively contacted me from the various guitar magazines that just kind of heard about it and whatnot was like nothing like I've experienced before.
You're on point about Allan and his fans. Just like there's something special about him, there's something special about the community around him.
No doubt. The other thing about Allan that I realized just from seeing him live once and just talking to the amount of people that I've talked to is that he was just great to everybody that came out to see him. He gave everyone the time of day, he talked to everyone. He wasn't this kind of outgoing guy, but, sure, he'd sign whatever and talk. And I mean, he was just so friendly to everyone. Everyone had like a good experience with him. And, it's one thing I've learned from, being in the record industry for 30 plus years is that goes a long way.
Yeah.
You have a good fan experience with an artist, you're there. There's a lot of people that are they're not that friendly. Their art is great. You like their music or whatnot. But I mean, Allan, people had these kind of personal interactive experiences with him that they cherish, and it was just like, he seemed like he was a friend to a lot of these people, not just somebody that they went and, saw.
You never hear a story about him being rude to anybody. You never hear a single story about some asshole thing he did, ever.
Nah, he was, nice as could be to me, even though, like I said, I was probably public enemy number one at one point in time when he was stewing about this title and wanting, demanding that it would be changed, that we change it and whatnot.
But you know what? He's the rare guy who can actually call his life's work the man who changed guitar forever. I understand now he, as the individual, is uncomfortable with it because it seems like bragging and stuff. Most of the guys who want to brag are the guys who don't have the talent and who didn't change anything forever. When we were tossing all those names around, Dave Schultz from D2 Mastering, Evan Cohen, Chris Hord, another name that's recurring in your releases is Lisa Sutton, who's handling all the art. I know the box set was a lot of reproductions of the original album covers, but there was also some supplemental stuff, particularly in the booklet. But the 2-disc set that came out and also the new live one need new artwork, and the future releases will as well. So how did you connect with Lisa?
Well, Lisa is kind of our in-house person at Manifesto. I've known Lisa for many, many years. She used to work at Rhino, doesn't live far from me. Hadn't seen her in a while. When I went to work for Evan, he said that, Lisa Sutton does our artwork for us. And I was like, oh, cool. I know Lisa. So it's funny. She, like I said, with the first thing we worked on was the Lee Michaels project, and then the Turtles. And she had done some Turtles projects with Evan before, so she had archived a lot of stuff, which made it a lot easier. But I contacted her and I said, oh, you know what? The next thing we're going to do is I don't know if you've ever heard of Allan Holdsworth. And she said, I did one of his album covers. She was the art director on Secrets.
Oh, wow.
So she reproduced one of her own albums that she had done the original artwork for. So, there you go.
It's so crazy that you mentioned the name expecting it to fly right by her. She goes, oh, yeah, I did Secrets.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I knew what her tastes were. And so, but she was definitely familiar with Allan and, when she, worked for Enigma. So she's just got a great eye. It's like I basically, on all these projects, I'm the coordinator more than anything else. I got to get the guy for the liner notes and get as many cool kind of photo images as, we can. With Allan's, it was very cool, like using the one of him playing violin with Tempest, that was a great find. Just kind of things like that, and just the various incarnations of bands that, Bill Bruford actually sent me those photos and stuff. So nice. that was very cool. There was a lot of cooperation.
Well, don't undersell your involvement, because coordinating things is a very important job. Everybody else is compartmentalized. Like the audio engineers only have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about a booklet or marketing, and the art person doesn't have to worry about the sound. And you have to sort of make sure everything is there. So it's important what you do. Yeah,
and so and then also if there's a chronology, like with Allan, kind of starts off as a historical, just whatever, humble beginnings. There's a picture of him as a kid, or a picture of him with some of his earlier ensembles, Tempest or whatnot, and then eventually you're basically talking about each individual album. So you kind of want to have things that support that, the artwork, the pictures or whatnot. But Lisa, I just, on all the projects that we do, it's just basically like give her a little bit of guidance in terms of chronology. But other than that, she has the aesthetic and the eye for making things look great.
My feeling is if you're working with Lisa for the art, Chris Hord for the liner notes, yourself coordinating the team at D2 Mastering, and you keep that team together for the future releases, I feel like we'll be in good hands.
Well, great. Right now, the brain trust is trying to figure out what the next one will be. And any suggestions from anybody in the Allan Holdsworth world out there, or anybody that has, an amazing recording, here you go. Here's your chance for it to be released.
The first choice is, his stuff as a band leader, but I would like to hear, if you're to gather up the work he did on other people's albums, some of it's pretty famous, like Jean-Luc Ponty, but like he did an amazing solo on a Steve Hunt album that most people probably haven't heard. So he's done some great playing on other people's stuff too, but I don't know how problematic it is to gather up those recordings, but I'm sure that would be interesting for people to hear how he played with other artists.
Yeah, something that you just said, you touched on, I wanted to kind of make note of is that Jean-Luc Ponty, for instance, one of the things also coordinating that I had an idea was that when I started researching the project, I had seen some really amazing quotes from some guitarists such as Frank Zappa, John McLaughlin, Carlos Santana, Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, et cetera. And so I was like, oh, wow. So I went online and to, wherever, and I kind of gathered up as many quotes as possible. And then I started to just contact everybody and anybody that I knew had some association with Allan or somewhere where I read that they were a big fan or whatnot. And that's how, if you could see in the booklet, there's a ton of quotes from, various people. And Allan, one thing that he said to me, I went to the rehearsal. They were rehearsing in Atwater Village, kind of on the east side of Los Angeles. And he said, wow, I really liked all the quotes. I can't believe that you got that one from Jean-Luc Ponty. I have so much respect for him. And I was like, wow, I'm sure the feeling was mutual. I mean, obviously, Jean-Luc Ponty, I sent him a note and then boom, he wrote me this, amazing quote. But it was like that's something that Allan really liked. And so I was glad that I kind of followed up on that. In addition to having the old guard, Frank Zappa, and people like that, I got Dweezil Zappa. And somebody more current who Allan has actually played with Dweezil Zappa on one of his Zappa Plays Zappa shows. So that was kind of a cool thing that Allan liked.
Well, you mentioned the excitement in the Holdsworth community when they heard about this. I mean, I was obviously the same way. I reached out to you and some other people to see what I could find out about it, and that's why we're deliberately recording and releasing this podcast prior to December 7th, 2018. We want to help raise awareness of it. And, one of the best ways to further Allan's legacy is to purchase these new releases. Obviously, a lot of care is going into them. It's not a slapdash situation. I was very impressed with this one when I got my advance copy. Always makes me feel so special to get something before the public. And as we mentioned, act fast if you want to get that bonus DVD, because I've listened to the album at this point several times. I've watched the DVD a couple times. It's definitely a nice perk, and they're just giving it to you. If you happen to be listening to this after December 7th, 2018, circumstances may have changed, but this is going to remain in print and available for quite some time. Do you guys at Manifesto have any preference to how people buy this?
Amazon, I say, is kind of our go-to. If you go to our site, we don't sell direct to consumer from the office. So it's like if you went to our site and clicked on one of our releases, it would take you to Amazon. That's kind of like in this day and age, for a reissue label is about as kind of as good and as easy as it gets, and usually priced better than anywhere else. We have foreign distribution as well in the UK as well as throughout the Europe continent. Our distributor is based in Germany there, but covers the continent. And I let them know that some initial people prior to when we got them the product were concerned about the availability on their particular Amazon. So that should be taken care of now. Hopefully anybody that wants one will be able to get one.
I just wanted to ask in case there was a preference. But yeah, anybody, wherever you are in the world, go to your Amazon and get this ordered. Well, before we get to our thank yous, for those of you who may be new to the show and interested in further listening on this topic, I'll go ahead and recommend my past interviews with Jeff Berlin, Jamie Glazer, and Steve Hunt, all of whom had plenty to say about Allan, and of course, my interview with the man himself, Allan Holdsworth. Once again, I want to thank Emily and Louise. Thanks also to Sam and Lynn Holdsworth. Also, big thanks to Manning Bartlett, Greg Beaton, Marie Takahashi, and everyone at the Unreal Allan Holdsworth Facebook group. And finally, thank you, Dan, not only for appearing on the show today, but also for the high-quality work you do at Manifesto. On behalf of Allan's fans, we appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we definitely take pride in the quality of the releases. I use me as the person that I am catering to, as I am a collector, and I love reissues, and I love when they have good photos, good notes, a nice booklet. They're recorded nicely. So when I get something that's subpar, nothing pisses me off more, and I don't want to be the guy that supplies that to anybody. I didn't know a lot about Allan Holdsworth before I started working with him, but it's been a great honor to be the gatekeeper to these releases, and I know he was happy with them. So like you said, we're on the right track. We got a good team assembled of people that will guide me in the right direction, and we will continue these as long as they are supported. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, that's very well said, and you're right. You know, if Allan liked it, we're all going to like it too.
Amen.
Well, we have one more song to play from the new album, and when you're ordering your copy of the album, keep in mind what an excellent Christmas present it would make, particularly for any cocky guitar player friends you may have who are in need of some humbling. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. So long, everybody.
Allan went to a hotel with a friend of his, and Allan was in the lobby, and William Shatner came down the stairs. He saw Allan next to the bags, and William Shatner said to Allan, "Excuse me, could you please get those bags up to my room?" And Allan was such a Star Trek fan, he didn't say one word. He just picked up the bags and carried them up to his room. And then afterwards, someone said to William Shatner, "Hey, do you know who that was?" And he goes, "Well, that was the bellman, wasn't it?" He said, "No, that was Allan Holdsworth." He said, "Well, who's that?" He said, "Well, he's this world-famous guitarist." And then William Shatner listened to Allan's music and actually really liked it. And I don't know if he got back to him or not on it, but to me, that was one of the most precious stories about Allan. And I would love to have a picture of Allan carrying William Shatner's bags up to his room.
This is a fascinating machine. What is it?
This is the Atavachron.